Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya, Josh McCuistion here as Oklahoma goes into a massive recruiting weekend, believe it or not. A big official visit weekend coming up in Norman on the heels of, I guess, day 3 of Brent Venables football camp. We broke down everything, including Jaden O'Neal, a bunch of guys. I think there was 13 or 14 guys that we went over in the breakdown that you can see right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. But now you transition. You move into official visit weekend in Norman as things get fired up around here. And Josh, I think simply put, some big names coming into Norman for their official visit this weekend.
Yeah, you've got a list of not just, highly ranked guys, but a lot of these guys are way up Oklahoma's board. Like I know, just to kind of start with one, Floyd Buchard, the defensive lineman from Miami. This is a guy that, I think is a 3-star on 3. Oklahoma thinks very highly of him. This has been a guy OU has circled since pretty early on. And watching some of his tape, this is a Canadian kid. He's moved around a little bit, but there's a lot of potential there. So I can see what they like, what they're excited about. This feels like a guy that Todd Bates tries to bring in and really unlock his potential. And again, he's one of many that I know Oklahoma's really excited about.
Josh, let's talk about the offensive line situation. Michael Fasusi expected to come in this weekend. Ty Haywood seems like that's maybe up in the air. Give us the rundown on the O-line.
Yeah, those are the two that will be in town. Michael Fasusi, he's obviously already tweeted out. Daniel Akinkunmi's already taken credit as his host this weekend. Those two make a lot of sense. I know Michael's mentioned Daniel before as a guy he kind of connected with. And, Michael's a guy that's very aware of, image and branding and those kind of things. So I think Daniel and the way he's done everything really kind of resonates in a way. Oklahoma's got an uphill battle there. I mean, Texas and Texas A&M are kind of the favorites, but he loves Bill Bedenbaugh. He loves Oklahoma's offensive line track record. There's a lot there that makes sense. I think it's one of those deals where he's just going to have that feeling like this could be the place. And so Oklahoma's going to have to really hit all the right notes. With Ty Haywood, even as we record this, it's kind of up in the air. I expect this is probably going to be rescheduled to next weekend, which may work out better. It's the bigger weekend. It's Champ U barbecue, all that stuff that really has worked out pretty well for Oklahoma through the years. To have Ty Haywood there that weekend, I don't think that's going to be a bad thing. He's just kind of had a family situation emerge, and I know you fans have heard that before, but this one's very legitimate. It's just a matter of, is it going to work out where he can come up this weekend? I don't think he will, but I think I couldn't say definitively at this point.
Certainly, wish that situation the best. In terms of, you mentioned Floyd Buchard. He's not the only defensive lineman coming in. You'd have to go all the way back to, I had to look it up to remember when it was, but Trent Wilson, Oklahoma commits coming into town this weekend, as well as Mark, and I'm going to butcher this, but I think if you've watched this enough, you've come to find that out. Mark Ionacor? Maybe I just nailed it.
Job. Now I will say Mark is a linebacker, so
Okay.
a little different situation.
Okay.
But what is interesting about Mark, and for those who haven't watched it yet, certainly watch the recruiting report where we talk about Jaden O'Neal's visit. But Mark and Jaden O'Neal is now transferred to Narbonne High School, where Mark is at. So that's some interesting connection there. It's a little. He may end up being a numbers game. I know Oklahoma likes him. It's a matter of can they push to take him this weekend. He's going to be joined by Elijah Melendez, who we can talk about in a second. But I will say what I do find interesting about what you've talked about here, Eddie, Trent Wilson and Floyd Buchard, I'm not sure that's Oklahoma's dream scenario, but boy, it's not far from it because Trent Wilson's very much like a 3-tech, going to be very active, a pass rusher, while Floyd Buchard is a very athletic kind of 1-tech 0 guy they could do some different stuff with. But I think he's got a lot more upside than people might associate with that position. But if you could find a way to get those two in your class, I don't really care where they're ranked. I know Todd Bates really likes those guys, and that's a great point to start from.
Josh, how much does it help having Trent Wilson on campus this weekend kind of recruiting some of these guys?
Absolutely. I think it's huge because Trent's a guy, it's easy. I think fans and even people like ourselves sometimes forget when the local guy commits, it's like, well, yeah, you committed to the school that's down the road. You've been to 700 times, and all the schools that I've looked at, you've been to once, that kind of deal. With Trent Wilson, like, he's not some local guy. He came one time, kind of fell in love, and just it all moved forward from there. So I think what he can tell these guys will resonate because, like I said, Floyd Buchard is now, he's a guy from Canada. He played last year in Alabama. He's now in Miami. He's been to the University of Miami's campus several times. This is going to be his only chance to visit Oklahoma before he makes a decision in July. I just think there's a lot there that's kind of in play. And to have Trent Wilson to be like, this is what I saw, this is what I liked. And Trent's a very, very mature guy. I don't think he'll get to the point where he's nagging anyone. I think it's just going to be like, man, you want to talk to me? I'll talk to you about this. I'll lay out what I was thinking. And I think that can pay off for OU in a big way.
What do you make of, and I mentioned there was the third defensive lineman. I'm an idiot, but I'm not really that dumb if you think about it. I just had the guys mixed up. Mekhi Williams-Lee is the third defensive lineman to come in and take an official visit this weekend.
Well, and Eddie, your connection between he and Mark Iannachor, I've never had to say it out loud either, Eddie, so we'll struggle together, is pretty fitting, honestly, because I think they are both in the same situation where Oklahoma likes them. If the numbers can work, they absolutely would love to have both of them. I don't know. I don't know at this point if, is he a take? If he wanted to commit this weekend, could he do it? I don't know. I'm not saying yes. I'm not saying no. It's just kind of up in the air. And I think it will kind of depend on what Oklahoma feels from Floyd Buchard on this visit, what they kind of expect in the coming weekends. So we'll have to watch that a little bit and just kind of see, with Christian Evans, he comes in on the 21st for that Champ U barbecue. So there's kind of some apples, did I say apples in the air? That's not the right thing. Some you juggle you have something in the air.
Yeah.
Balls in the air. Perfect. There we go.
It's
I'm struggling this morning. But I think they've got to weigh that out a little bit because, guys, we keep talking about it. Like, Oklahoma has all these guys coming in. Like, Marcus Harris is coming in unexpectedly. They're clearly still engaged with some guys that even we don't really talk about much. And you throw that into the equation, and at the same time, whenever I talk to people, it's like, this class is going to be small. This class is going to be small. They've already got, they're well into the teens in commitment. So how small can it be? Who are your focuses when they still need at least 3 or 4 offensive linemen in this class? Like, there's a lot that we're going to have to kind of see play out and see what they do here. But again, with Mekhi Williams-Lee and Mark, I just think it's going to be it's tough to predict how that's going to fall because it's really going to be, to some degree, how hard does OU push this weekend?
Let's talk about the 2 wide receivers that are coming in. You just mentioned one, Marcus Harris, coming in from Mater Dei High School out in California, one of the better programs in the country, as well as Cortez Mills coming in from Florida.
Yeah, Marcus Harris, like I mentioned, is a guy that Oklahoma hadn't really been discussed with. Everybody kind of, there's a lot of UCLA talk. Earlier, there was a lot of Texas talk. I think that's maybe faded a little bit. I'm wondering if this is maybe Oklahoma being a little opportunistic and saying, this guy's really good. Maybe he could be a fit, because I think it's pretty clear they'd like another slot type receiver. With Marcus Harris, you've got, a smaller guy, 5'11", 185 is his list on On3. And then you move to Cortez Mills, who is about 6 foot, 6'1", and he's even a little leaner at about 165. These are explosive guys, come from, good programs. As you mentioned with Marcus Harris, Mater Dei is, really one of the 3 or 4 gold standards in the country. And this is kind of interesting. Like, this is not one of those ones where I'd say, OU's got no chance here. If you're going head up with UCLA, you got a chance because you have some advantages, especially in this NIL world, that maybe UCLA can't offer. So I'm interested to see what happens there. Cortez Mills, he loved his first visit. I think Oklahoma has a chance there, but it's, obviously Miami, Florida, some of the in-state schools that you're always going to have to fight against down there. it's going to be tough to gauge. But I think, like, if you told me either one of these guys ended up in the class, I don't think that's crazy to consider.
Never count out Emmett Jones.
Yes.
He's done phenomenal. Is that all of them?
We got one more.
One more?
Elijah Melendez, which is kind of interesting, Josh. The linebacker comes in. He's committed currently to Miami.
This is a guy kind of like what I was talking about. I can't remember if I mentioned him when I was talking about Floyd Buchard. This is a guy Oklahoma likes a lot. This is a guy Zach Alley has invested a lot of effort into. And I honestly didn't know if it was going to pay off, but had heard, I think late last week that this had been set up kind of around the time we were hitting Norman for camp, this was starting to come to fruition. And now I kind of thought all week maybe, Miami was going to try to do something and step in the way, because as much as people love to talk about Miami's NIL, Oklahoma has been a real thorn in the side for Miami. They have beaten Miami on a couple of really high-profile guys, David Stone, Devon Mitchell, stuff like that. Now, those guys were more connected to the state of Oklahoma and had more connection to OU's roster. This is the opposite situation. This is a program that should be familiar to OU fans. This is Osceola in Kissimmee. This is the same program that produced Derek LeBlanc a couple of years ago. So, maybe even if he signs with Oklahoma, we don't know what to expect. But this is a really talented guy that I know Oklahoma likes, and I would rate it as a puncher's chance. Like, do I think it's likely? No, probably not. But for the guy to take the trip, knowing that Oklahoma's had some success against Miami in recent years, I think there is some reason to believe, hey, maybe something could happen here this weekend.
Kind of a big first challenge for Zach Alley.
Sure.
Recruiting-wise, that sounds like it'll be interesting. Josh, I'm going to ask the question that I'm sure everybody at home wants to know. What is the chance any of these guys commit after this weekend? I know that you've said on previous shows, hey, just be patient. It's coming. You said that last year, and it did come in waves, especially in the summer, kind of this time of year, maybe even a little bit later. Do you think there's a chance any of these guys, say, hey, I'm going to commit after this weekend?
It's possible. You're getting to that point in time where you're seeing kids starting to commit, and it's kind of musical chairs. Like, okay, my spot's gone there, I better sit here. And it may be, sometimes it's born of, well, that's what I wanted to do anyway. I just kind of I would have liked to have a little more time. And then sometimes guys are just like, I'm going to end up, in the words of Bob Stoops, I'm going to end up at East Popcorn State if I'm not careful about what I do here and the moves I make. The two guys I think I would probably watch are the two I talked about with Mark Iannachor is what I'm going to go with for now, and Mekhi Williams-Lee. And I think it's largely because those two, Oklahoma's among, I think you could probably say, their best options. I mean, and probably is their best option as far as, national prestige and all those sort of things. The things that we know a lot of these guys value. Now, they may love a coaching staff more. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from a broad view, Oklahoma would be termed a little differently than some of these other programs. What it's going to take is, like I said, with Elijah Melendez, if Oklahoma's there sitting there on Saturday afternoon and they're like, we're not getting this kid, he's not into it, this isn't going as well as we'd hoped, or whatever it may be, do you then pivot and say, Mark, hey, we'll take you, we want you, we're going to move forward with you, and you go in that direction, and then, you with he and, potentially Jaden O'Neal, do you start to build kind of a Southern California thing like we saw Oklahoma have so much success with in 2010? So we'll have to watch all that. With Mekhi Williams-Lee, kind of the same deal. I don't know what's happening with Floyd Buchard. We don't feel great about that. Maybe Christian Evans, we get word that he's enjoying his visit, elsewhere. So I think it would take some chips kind of falling in a certain direction. So I don't think anything will happen this weekend, but, could you play with the numbers enough to make it possible? Yeah, I could see it.
Needless to say, big weekend ahead with so many official visitors, kind of starting what is going to be a very active month for Oklahoma in the recruiting realm of things, of hosting and all that kind of stuff that comes with official visits. So, Josh, we appreciate it. We'll be looking forward to the coverage on SoonerScoop.com all weekend. And, back into camp sessions starting next week. It's going to be incredible. All right, for Josh, George.
I'm George.
I think I know that.
You're Eddie. And this is
Are we sure?
SoonerScoop.com.
Well, this is the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. We'll see you then.